And I would say on an atheistic view, there is no objective purpose in life. There is no reason for which we exist. Death marks the end of all the life we will ever know, and indeed the entire universe is doomed to destruction in the heat death of the universe. There will be no light, there will be no heat, there will be no life, just the endless carcasses of dead stars and galaxies expanding into the infinite blackness. So that on an atheistic view, there is no purpose, there is no objective meaning, and there are no moral values. Love is merely an electrochemical reaction in the brain of our nervous system. Richard Dawkins has said something like this. Dawkins says, "We are possibly the only planet in the universe in which complex chunks of matter run, pursue others, prey upon others, and some have even become so complex as to think, feel, and fall in love with other complex chunks of matter." That's all love is on an atheistic view, just an electrochemical reaction determined by the brain. It has no moral or ethical significance at all.
Well, let me raise with you, if I may, one of the more controversial areas that you talked about in the past, and it relates to the biblical story of the people of Israel leaving slavery in Egypt and returning to the land of Israel, and God, according to the Bible, tells them to kill the Canaanites who are currently living there, every man, woman and child, an act that today I suppose we'd probably call genocide. And you've written quite a lot about this, and you seem to be saying, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure, you seem to be saying that genocide's all right if God instructs it.
Well, I think that's a misrepresentation of my position. What I said is that when God brought Israel out of slavery in Egypt, he held them there for 400 years until Canaanite culture had become so debauched, so reprobate, that they were ripe for divine judgment. And Israel was used as a means of judging these Canaanite tribes. And so what God did was not command genocide. That's a misrepresentation. What he commanded the armies of Israel to do is to dispossess the Canaanite tribes of the land. It was the land that was and remains in the Middle East so important to the people there. And so God told them, drive the Canaanites out of the land. And it was only those who chose to remain behind and fight that were killed. But they were not pursued. If they had chosen simply to leave the land, nobody would have died. So to characterize this as genocide is really quite a misrepresentation.
Right. Well, let me read you a passage that you wrote, which I think some people may find slightly startling, relating again to this and to the fact that children were among those who were killed. Moreover, if we believe, as I do, that God's grace is extended to those who die in infancy or as small children, the death of these children was actually their salvation. We're so wedded to an earthly, naturalistic perspective that we forget that those who die are happy to quit this earth for heaven's incomparable joy. Therefore, God does these children no wrong in taking their lives. You stand by that, do you?
I do, absolutely. I think that when we look at it from the wider perspective of a Christian point of view, to leave this life, to go to be with God forever, is profit. It's better.
But how can you know that they would be happy to quit this earth for heaven's incomparable joy?
Because I believe that salvation is given to persons who die in infancy.
I think that that's what the Bible suggests, and therefore they go from a world of temporal goods to a realm of eternal, infinite, incomprehensible blessing. So that God has as the authoring sustainer of life, he has the right to give and take life as he chooses.
Professor Craig, forgive me, we must leave it there, but thank you very much indeed for joining us.
It's not every day that one atheist accuses another of cowardice for refusing to debate a Christian. It's even rarer when both are Oxford dons. Richard Dawkins, the world's most famous atheist, is facing that accusation because he has turned down an offer to publicly debate a man regarded by many as the world's leading defender of Christian belief. Professor William Lane Craig is a philosopher and a theologian with 2 PhDs from leading universities. He's the author of 30 books and hundreds of peer-reviewed academic articles. But Richard Dawkins has repeatedly refused to take him on in debate. I asked William Lane Craig to describe his most recent rebuttal ahead of his upcoming speaking tour in the United Kingdom.
Dawkins wrote back and said, "I've never heard of William Craig, and while a debate with me might look good on his resume, it wouldn't look good on mine. And besides, I never debate a religious person unless he's at least a bishop or archbishop." And so simply sort of blew away the invitation. So that was, I guess, the genesis of it. And since then, a number of different groups have tried to set up debates or dialogues between us, and he's always been consistent in declining to do these. And in connection now with this upcoming tour in October, they reapproached Richard Dawkins. Apparently several organizations did, attempting to have a debate, and he's been resolute in saying that he won't do it.
It is the case that Richard Dawkins has debated religious believers who are academics, including, for example, John Lennox, the Oxford mathematician. And
yes,
though you would be too modest to say this, you are highly regarded as one of the world's, perhaps the world's, leading Christian philosophical apologists. So that has prompted some people, including an atheist philosopher at Oxford University, Daniel Kame, to accuse Richard Dawkins of cowardice in refusing to debate you. Do you sense any cowardice here?
I think it would be inappropriate for me to comment on his personal motivations. I don't know the man, and so I just don't speculate. The facts are simply that he refuses to do it, even though, as you say, this seems inconsistent with his policies in the past.
He has debated pastors. He has debated cultural commentators. He debated Pastor Ted Haggard on one occasion.
I heard.
But he won't debate perhaps the most armed example of Christian apologetics, if we can put it like that.
Well, I think it would be a very good dialogue. You see, I have published criticisms of his work already. It's not as though we fail to interact. I have published critiques of his arguments in the God delusion, and so far as I know, he's not cared to respond to these either, even in print. So it's not just a matter of not wanting to be involved in a rhetorical debating situation. He's been completely unresponsive to the criticisms.
How would you approach a debate with him?
The way I do the other debates that I've been involved in, they are always academic forums that are conducted with civility and respect. They're not like political debates or debates like you might see in the House of Commons. These are academic forums where one concentrates on the arguments and counter-arguments, the truth of the premises of those arguments and objections to them, and not on personalities or ad hominem attacks. So there would be no reason to fear any sort of rhetorical trickery on my part. I don't engage in that sort of thing.
So if I can put you on the spot for a second, if you were to debate Richard Dawkins, give us a sense of what your opening statement might be.
Well, what I would do, frankly, is no surprise. I would defend the 5 arguments that he has criticized in the God delusion, including the cosmological argument, the teleological argument, the moral argument, the ontological argument, and I would try to show how those are cogent arguments for the existence of a metaphysically necessary, transcendent creator and designer of the universe, and that his criticisms of these arguments simply misfire. So there would be no element of surprise from my end of the argument. I've already published these criticisms, and that's what I would offer in the debate.
Do you think you can prove that God exists?
Well, I think that depends on what a person means by the word prove. Popular culture, the word proof has a connotation of absolute certainty, mathematical demonstration, and certainly I'm not claiming anything as strong as that. I would say that what I offer are good arguments for the existence of God. That is to say, these arguments make it more probable than not that such a being exists.
Are you optimistic, Dr. Craig, that you might actually get a chance to put these arguments to Richard Dawkins face to face?
No, I'm not. I think he's been adamant in refusing to do this, and I would be, frankly, rather shocked if he were to change his mind at this point.
Does this bother you that he won't debate you?
Frankly, no. I think that the expectations on me, if such a debate came off, would be so high that if he even just managed to survive, people would see that as a victory for him. So I'm not plumping for this debate at all. This is not something I've sought to do. This is something that other organizations and persons have tried to put together. I'd welcome it, but I'm not seeking it.
Well, if he
won't be in the least disappointed if it doesn't come off.
If he won't do a public debate with you in a room with an audience, we could suggest to him, if you wish, that he debates you on Sunday Sequence on this very program.
Yes, I'm quite open to all of those suggestions.